Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Kyle Juice Michalski, Quinten Krzysko, Sunny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
And welcome back. Our Chicago Bears just dismantled the Jacksonville Jaguars in London, in their secondary home state, home country, whatever you want to call it. Bears look good, boys. My name is Quinten Krzysko. I'm joined by Sunny Verma and Ron Luce today. We are Bears on Tap. How are you guys doing this evening? Starting with Sunny.
Bears 4-2, Illini 5-1. Blackhawks looking like they're ready to make the next step. Life is good. I'm just waiting on you, Cubs.
Don't even get me started there.
No.
Don't even get me started there. But I feel
no.
I feel that, man. Hey, I being the diehard Blackhawks fan I am, Friday and Saturday we had a lot of exciting things to look forward to. And then I was hoping the Bears could really put the exclamation point on the weekend, and they did that a little earlier in the day than we're used to. But hey, that's all right. It was kind of fun. I feel like we got to channel our little like inner Premier League fandom today for the NFL with the early start. But I'm doing well, gentlemen. It's good to be on the microphone with the both of you.
Yeah, it was very much like today was a fun day from the aspect of like we got the victory, we got the win. And we were able to like chill out and watch football the rest of the day of just like, man, this feels nice. This feels good. Bears are 4-2. They're right there in the division. How about this? The entire NFC North has 4 more wins.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It's tough. Again, I'll bring it up later, but, I know a lot of folks are saying, yeah, we played through the worst defenses in the league and, we're beating up on bad teams. And you know what? That's just fine because that schedule is going to get a lot tougher on the back half. So I'd rather, win comfortably now and chalk up that W column for now.
Like Paul Cruz says, you need a couple of tune-up games before you get to the big boys in the schedule. And for the Bears, that's just what they're doing right now. But they're taking care of business.
Yeah, all you can do is play who's on your schedule, right? Like, all you can judge any team on is by what they've done against the teams that they've done it against. And so far, so good for the Bears, I'd say, outside of maybe one game early, which the Colts game, I think, was the only one where you're sitting there going, they should have had it. But otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good about where the Bears are sitting.
I mean, I'd say in years past, we were the team that people were beating up on, that they were inflating other teams were inflating their records over. So the fact that we've at least jumped up a level and now we're able to, clearly beat teams that are inferior to us. This is back to back. I actually re-listened to last week's episode, Q, and I kicked it off saying, it's nice to just have a comfortable win every once in a while. We haven't had that in so long. Well, I can pretty much repeat that verbatim this week now. And so being able to do that, it's nice to see the progress this organization is making.
Yeah, first time since 1956 back-to-back weeks of 35 plus points scored.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
It's a hell of a statistic when you factor in that it's been pretty much 70 years since this team has done what they've done in the last 2 weeks, and it may be more than ever, at least in our recent memory, right? Especially, I think our lifetime collectively as Bears fans. Probably the most exciting the team's been this early in the season, just given the hype, and they've been actually delivering on it so far with the offensive play and the defense to both.
Yeah, we're used to the defensive side being so much fun and, typical Bears football. Now it's a little bit different in the sense that, we're all watching this kid playing quarterback get better every single week. And there's a calmness that comes with it. It's like, oh, every other fan base has seen this in their lifetime. This is kind of our first time doing it. And you know what? It feels really nice.
Yeah. And speaking of something that's a little different, I want to touch on something in the comments here from Scott from Iowa saying that for once in his life, the O-line and QB are not the biggest concerns. It's the injuries that are stacking up in the secondary. How do you guys feel about, like, now no Tyreek Stevenson, no Kyler Gordon? it looks like Kyler Gordon might be a pretty serious hamstring injury that keeps him out a little bit. According to like Dr. Mason West on Twitter, he was saying he thinks it's going to be at least a few weeks, if not more than that. How do you guys feel about where the Bears secondary is sitting now?
I think.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just gonna say, I think they're in an okay position because of the depth that they do have in place. Like it's a lot of guys that have been here for at least a year, maybe two. You know, they know how to play the scheme. I think Blackwell stepped in and performed admirably in this game. Obviously, again, it's against the Jaguars, who are a struggling offense and whatever, but it's tough to jump in and, you know, an international setting like that and have a good game, and he did. I think there might be, you know, a veteran on the market, perhaps maybe an Adrian Colbert that they go and bring back to have in the secondary. You know, there's somebody like that they're going to have to sign just inevitably for the numbers. But, you know, I think they have enough in terms of what their front four is doing, especially against inferior offensive lines, and, you know, just how the coverage plays, where I think they can get by and be okay. Might be a couple of rough patches over the next couple of weeks if you're losing both of them for, you know, multiple week stretches here. But I think overall, you know, the guys that were behind them today stepped up and played really, really well in this game.
I mean, if you take a look at the line, you know, the Bears were favored for the most part, for the better part of this week. And then once these injuries news were starting to drop out, it got flipped. And Jacksonville was favored to win. And obviously, Trevor threw for like 300 plus last week.
Mm-hmm.
And
almost
so
400.
Yeah, Vegas factored that in. And yet, really, it wasn't an issue. And what's nice is just the timing of all this. We're going into a bye week. We get to buy another 2 weeks worth of these guys healing. You know, it's all of it's coming together, boys. All of it's coming together.
Yeah, so now that, and we also have Bear Truth in the comments saying that Gordon was seen walking after the game with no limp or favor. So we'll see. Maybe that was just hearsay at the point when it got put out there. But all I know is that it seemed to look pretty bad. So I'm bracing for the worst. But like Ron said, Josh Blackwell came in there and played admirably. Like you didn't even really notice that Gordon was gone, which I think you will notice over a few games. But Blackwell is a really strong backup there. And I don't know about you guys. I felt fine about Jalen Jones all game too. So I feel like they do have good depth. If all those guys are going to miss a few games, you would say, I like Ron's idea with Adrian Colbert. They really seem to like him in the preseason and throughout like all of Hard Knocks and all that. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's available, if they added him for safety help, if Brisker's going to miss any more time here. But ultimately, I feel okay about it. But moving on, let's get into some of the recap here. So like Bears opened the game and it was yet again a rough first quarter for the offense, right? You know, 2 3-and-outs. They end up down 3-0 at the start of the game. They haven't had a first quarter lead all season, I think, was a stat I saw today.
Oh, well, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
That's a crazy stat.
No, it really is. It's for it to be 4-2 and not have a first quarter lead all season. But then in the second quarter, they get it going. You know, they go touchdown. Then there's the Caleb interception. And I want to ask you guys, starting with Ron, what thoughts went through your head when that ball was intercepted?
You know, I think really all it was just simply it was like, ooh, he just misfired. Like it didn't look like it was, you know, he made the right play. I mean, DJ Moore was wide open. I think he just underthrew him a little bit. And it might just, again, there's calculation to be had. You know, Q, you and I talked about it on the show a few weeks ago, right? About the hash marks and how that changes angles of throws. And there's a little bit of an adjustment period, especially throwing downfield for these quarterbacks. I think that one was just a misfire. It's not one I'm overly concerned about long term because he completed 75% of his passes in this game today. So not overly concerned. It was just like I had this moment of thought, gentlemen, when that ball was in the air and seeing DJ Moore downfield. I said, if this thing connects wherever you are in this city, Chicago, in the world, it's just going to erupt, absolutely erupt. And I was waiting for it. And then the pop never came, which was a little disappointing. But no harm, no foul. I think it's just part of the growing pains for Caleb Williams.
Exactly. You know what? As fantastic as he's played and as good as he's gotten and improved every single week, we have to remind ourselves every now and then he is still a rookie. sometimes a throw is going to be a couple inches off, or in this case, just not enough juice behind it. I like the fact that he made the right read. Again, we all saw it. DJ Moore wide open, and he made the throw. The throw didn't connect, but again, how upset can we get? He was 23 for 29 for the entire game, but it was a bummer. But rookie time, right? He's a rookie. It's going to happen.
Right. And I think the thing that I keep coming back to is we know it's there.
Right.
So it's not like we saw this guy underthrowing people in college. It's not like the deep ball wasn't part of his game. And it's not like he had receivers who were constantly bailing him out of underthrows or overthrows. He was a guy who really put it on the money a lot during college. So to me, I know he has the downfield accuracy. I know he has the mechanics to get it done. I know he has the arm power to do it. So it's really just timing, chemistry with the receivers. Like, I believe that was a double move by DJ Moore on that route. So that might have thrown something off a little more if something kind of needed to change a little bit on the route. But ultimately, it could be something like he cut the double move a little short because it was like, if I run the full double move, it's going to be covered. But if I just go now, I'm going to be home free. And that might have just thrown off the spacing of the route. I think there's a lot of things that can be at play there for a rookie quarterback. I'm willing to accept those excuses. For a second-year quarterback, that needs to be cleaned up. So, that, ultimately, even if it's a second-year quarterback and he's still throwing 4 touchdowns and 1 interception, and that's the 1 interception, I'll be fine with it. That's where we're at. But the deep ball is a bit of a concern right now. So, I think that's worth discussing. And Bear Truth 9 says in the comments here, Caleb needs to keep working on that mid-deep game. He looks like he's still aiming at times. I do think there's a little bit of just he's thinking about it still. And he's like, it's not just see it, rip it. It's I'm over analyzing where my spot on the field needs to be that I'm throwing to. So hopefully that's something that we see him keep improving.
Yeah, and it'll come. I mean, I think a lot of just what he's doing right now is overanalyzing, right? You see the amount of checks he's doing at the line, and that's all great. That's all stuff that's going to benefit him long-term in his development. But just naturally, right, it's ironic. I was just talking to a college football coach that I know at my alma mater over at St. Xavier, and they were talking about that with their quarterback. They're like, hey, we're going to play with tempo because we just want him to not think. Just be an athlete. When you're thinking, that happens sometimes. And he's going to get into a further rhythm. Again, I think we also forget that this was his 6th game of his NFL career, and he's already doing what he's doing. So, I'm not at all concerned. If anything, I think it's a good learning moment for him. They're going to have film on it. We're going to be able to see it on the All-22 probably by tomorrow afternoon. You might, like you said, Q, you might see something where it's, okay, that's where something went wrong, and he just didn't fire it correctly, and they move on, and they'll happily still accept the W and the 4 touchdowns at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But continuing on with the summary, I mean, I'm not even talking much defense here because the defense just gave up that field goal on the first Jaguars drive, and then it was punt, half. So Bears come back after that interception, drive 85 yards, 10 plays, put another touchdown put their second touchdown on the board. Yes, with the Cole Kmet 2-yard touchdown. And I think I glossed over the first touchdown a little bit, and we need to talk about that a little because that was the 31-yarder to Kmet. That was, I feel like they've been setting this up since week 1. And it is a play that was in Shane Waldron's playbook in Seattle. So this was definitely, to me, something that they build their whole screen game involving this concept of screen left fake, screen right fake, bomb to Kmet, right down the seam. That was beautiful. That was one of the best plays I've seen all year for the Bears. And Kmet's ability to just break the tackle and make sure it gets in for 7 was just chef's kiss. But what did you guys think about that play?
I mean, you nailed it. I think it was Keenan, right, who they faked out the screen to. Mm-hmm. It looked like they were setting it up for him. And then Cole just got open. And I don't think Caleb has had an easier pass in his entire career than that one. He was wide open. And then once he caught the ball, Cole Kmet did the rest. He did his football move and just overpowered and got into that end zone, and he deserved it. And, just a minute later, he had to hike the ball as a snapper. He had a busy day.
Yeah.
He sure did. I'll tell you what, though, there is nothing more beautiful in the sport of football when you know this play. Waldron's just been staring at it probably for 3 weeks. He's like, when can I use this? When can I pull this out and it's just going to work exactly how I want it to play? And it just happened to come to fruition today, right? I mean, it's beautiful when you can take something that habitually for this Bears offense, right, in years past, it was a crutch almost of, oh, they're throwing another screen. They're throwing another screen. And then I think we even went through that a little bit early this season. The fan base kind of screaming from the rooftops, oh, not the screen game garbage again. Don't do. That's when it pays off because teams have enough of that on film. So you set it up twice. You're confusing both sides of the field's defenders, right? They're not communicating necessarily mid-play. You get both sides of the field confused. You pull those safeties toward the sidelines as a result. And the perfect play design, Kmet. Oh, I missed my block. What a shame. Hey, Caleb, I'm open. Let's go for 6. And a perfectly executed play with a perfectly executed storyline, as you said there, Sonny, because Cole Kmet, big football guy, backup long snapper, something that I don't think a lot of the Bears fan base knew or ever thought they would see, but got to see it over across the pond.
Yeah, and then so Bears go into half 14-3, come out of the half. TJ Edwards does what TJ Edwards does, forces the fumble. Bears turn that around 41 yards for a touchdown, this time to Keenan Allen, I believe. And then they're up 21-3 at this point. It feels like that felt pretty game sealing at that moment. It was just kind of like, not that it was necessarily game sealing, but like the momentum had just completely shifted. It felt like, even though the Jaguars went down for 7 the next series, I felt like that was kind of okay. Well, I mean, Bears are just going to get the ball back and go back down and score again because that's how this game is going. And this game's, the momentum is all in the Bears' favor.
Yeah, I will say there's something to be said for, and Sonny, I know you can appreciate this covering the Illini. College football, a 1-3 lead given any sort of game is not always comforting. Like there's like okay, that's nice, but like now let's get that big stop, maybe add another one, and then there's a sense of breathe, things are okay. In the NFL, a 21-3 lead is very cushiony. And it's a whole different feeling, agreeing with you guys both here, and the body language as we discuss this question, because, they walked down the field, but based on the throws you were seeing Caleb make, both to Keenan as well as to Kmet in this game, other guys across the field, there was no sense of concern. And it was a beautiful thing to experience as a Bears fan.
And I want to acknowledge that throw. That the one that got to 21 to Keenan Allen, where he threw it between the Mike linebacker, and it's a throw that very few young quarterbacks have the confidence of making. And for me, I keep repeating myself. It's just we've had so many quarterbacks in the past, Justin can't make that type of throw, right? But just the confidence level to read what's going on in front of you, and as you said, basically at that point, once you hit 21-3, it's almost time like, all right, we got this game in hand. And that's just the confidence that Caleb is bringing us.
Yeah, to your point, that's not an easy throw. Like layering it right over the defender with just the right club where you're getting it catchable, but over that guy. That's a tough throw. It's a tough catch for Keenan, but that's the second time this season we've seen Caleb lace that throw.
Right. And you don't have, it's not like you have a lot of field space. Like you have to nail that throw at perfect distance, perfect angles, so the defender can't get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see a guy wearing blue and orange who can finally do that.
And we got blank name in the comments. We saw Trevor Lawrence miss the exact same throw. I don't remember that throw exactly, but I trust him. I believe him. Now, moving on. So at this point, the Bears, they turn around from that Keenan touchdown. They give up a touchdown to the Jaguars. Evan Ingram was integral on that drive. Evan Ingram had a big day. He was one of the only Jaguars who really did a lot today. But then the Bears come right back down, march 70 yards for another Keenan Allen touchdown, this time in the corner of the end zone. Gorgeous route, gorgeous ball, Like it worked out perfectly. And I don't know about you guys. I love to see Keenan getting more involved today. It was finally like, okay, he's not like there's still some juice there. He's still got it.
Go ahead, pat yourself on the shoulder, Q. You know what you
I-
want to say. You called it. You called it in the preview episode. It's okay.
See, I feel like it. I didn't though. I feel like it's cheap because he only had like 40 yards. Like, sure, the 2 touchdowns are great, but I was talking about like 100-yard day from Keenan. You know?
But I mean, I get what you're saying, but I was just taking a look at the stats before we started. 5 different guys had 3 or more targets when it comes to receiving. It's like we were just throwing it all over the place. So it's, 2 touchdowns is a pretty big deal. Yeah, the yardage might not be there, but it's just because Caleb is so good at spreading things around right now that we don't need one guy to just keep throwing it over and over again.
Well, and let's also keep in mind what Ryan Poles said before the season. What's the best tool to help a young quarterback? Continue to play with short fields constantly. When you play with short fields, the yardage numbers just aren't going to be there, and that was the case. The Bears defense kept pinning the Jaguars deep. Torrey Taylor continues to be an absolute weapon on special teams and continues to put teams deep in their own territory. When you're doing that and you're setting up at your own 45-yard line to start drives, that's the beautiful nature of the thing, right? You would say, oh, Caleb Williams threw 4 touchdown passes. People are like, wow, so he threw for like 350 yards. You're like, no, he barely cracked 225. But when you play with short fields, it don't matter. So to Sunny's point, 2 touchdowns on a day like that where A, the ball's being spread around, and B, it's a lot of short fields. You got to be happy with that result if you're a guy like Keenan Allen, who largely hasn't been super involved in the game plan through the first 5 weeks prior to this.
Yeah. And then from that point, the game is pretty much over. We're entering the fourth quarter, up 28-10, get an interception. Bears put up another touchdown. Jags score a late touchdown as we're entering garbage time, and then ends up 35-16. So I want to kind of, before we get into the next segments, I want to get your guys' general thoughts right now, exiting this game, going into the bye, going into the game thereafter, starting with Sunny. Where are you at with the Bears right now?
I'm exactly where I'm glad the Bears are where the best case scenario was for me. I wanted us to show that we were better than that soft schedule that we have early on in the season. I wanted to rack up wins as much as we could before the second half of the season starts and the divisional play starts. I wanted to see Caleb Williams getting better and better every single week. I've seen that. And now keep in mind, like after week 2, I wasn't seeing that, or maybe it was after week 3. We all had concerns about Shane Waldron. Those concerns are gone right now. I love the way that we've been looking on offense the last couple of weeks. So I'm very content, like more than content. I'm satisfied at this point, being 4-2, seeing the product I've seen on the field.
Yeah, I think I'm also feeling at a best case scenario right now because a lot of the things that people were concerned about early are coming to fruition. Sonny, you mentioned Shane Waldron and the play calling as one of those things. Seattle has always shown it over the years. The offense is useless unless the run game's working, and it's been working. DeAndre Swift has looked fantastic the last few weeks. Roschon Johnson has been the perfect complement piece as the number 2 running back behind Swift. Things are humming in the running game. They're going into more of what the offensive line does well with more power running and things like that. Like, you're just seeing that they have finally the tape of their own stuff of, hey, what's working, what's not, and let's continue to tinker the playbook as the season rolls on. This is why teams like the Kansas City Chiefs can, start 2-3 and still make it to the Super Bowl because they continue to tinker and they know how to make those proper adjustments over the course of the season. And I am pleased with the Bears and how they've adapted that. I think that's things in years past that have created concern for us because they don't adapt and change things based on success and failure. They're doing that. And best case scenario right now, I agree with you, Sonny. I think we're all sitting here pretty with a 4-2 record and happy and seeing the development of Caleb Williams and seeing the offense hum. I'm looking right now at the stats here too. We're talking about offensive stats humming. 5 receptions on 5 targets for Cole Kmet, 5 receptions on 5 targets for Keenan Allen, 2-on-2 for Rome, 4-on-4 for Swift, 2-on-3 for Roschon, 4-on-5 for DJ Moore. We've never seen that level of efficiency from the quarterback position. This is weird. And now they're at the perfect place where I'm going to scream it from the rooftops for the next 2 weeks. get healthy.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense. Get healthy over the bye, right? You have a lot of guys a little dinged up right now, little guys who are playing through some stuff and guys who missed some time. I think that's ultimately where we need to be with the bye. And speaking of injuries, do you guys think there was some foul play, like Scott's suggesting, with Scott Daly getting hurt today to neutralize Torrey Taylor?
I mean, if there was, it still gave us a fun story to talk about. We're kind of at the point where, another nice, comfortable Bears win, but Cole Kmet kind of stealing the show with 2 touchdowns and being the long snapper of the day, a thing that, a lot of casual fans probably didn't know he was the backup guy there. And so, it provided a fun little side story.
Didn't Caleb tell Torrey he wasn't going to be punting much? I think he only punted twice today anyway.
Yeah.
Not worried about it. When you don't make the guy punt, that's okay. That's okay.
The Bears are the perfect team at this point. If they punt, they win. If they don't punt, they win. It's a beautiful thing. Now that we've kind of gone through the game and given our thoughts, let's get to our next segment here.
The baddest man.
We're talking about the baddest man on the field. We're talking about the baddest Chicago Bear on the field. Ron, who is your baddest man today?
I mean, it feels hard not to take him, but he paints his nails and has a pink phone case, and they called him soft. He ain't soft. That's a bad dude. Caleb Williams back there, a quarterback right now. I mean, a historic day for a rookie quarterback. 75% completion percentage, 225 plus yards, 4 touchdowns. Those are numbers that you do not see regularly. And, it's kind of fun because Jaden Daniels might be getting a lot of the talk of the first 5 weeks of the season here because of what he's doing with both the arm and the legs. Caleb was second on the team in rushing today as well with 56 yards. He's doing it all.
Call me paranoid, but I don't think paranoid is the right word for this. But Jaden winning Rookie of the Week last week, basically strictly because he ran the ball more often. There was a thought in my head that Caleb noticed that. And then all of a sudden was like, you know what? I got to steal some extra yards with my legs when I can, because apparently these voters care about that.
Yeah, maybe. And he took it to heart. I mean, overall, you can't be mad when a guy puts up 275 yards of total offense between the air and the ground with 4 touchdowns. He's a bad dude. Keep painting your nails, big pimp. Tell him what's up.
Sonny, who you got?
There's 2 people I want to name. I'll just go with Cole. Again, just to see a guy step up like that, and I'm not even talking about the touchdowns. The play calling was fantastic, but with that first touchdown where he comes down with it and just bowls the guy over and wills himself to get to the end zone, and then you're celebrating. Then, oh, by the way, I get a long snap this to the extra point as well. Like, the guy, he's going to be acknowledged. He's been acknowledged by every postgame, I'm sure, at this point. But you don't know how many times Cole Kmet's going to be nominated for baddest man, and so I don't want to miss his opportunity.
Yeah, I think that makes all the sense in the world. I'm here for it. He's number 1 on my list.
Yeah,
because I got a list. I got like 7 guys that I can choose from here, and so
that's a good problem.
I'm going to talk about
exactly
a very good problem. We've had Rod. Last year we had weeks where we couldn't find one. So, very good problem. But I'm going to start from like my number 3 to my number 1. I'm just going to give them all a quick shout. Number 3 for me was Shane Waldron when he called the deep fake screen. Because that dude had a mischievous, evil laugh as he called it. He's just like, like, we got him. Oh, boy, we got him. Then after that, it's Montez Sweat. I thought Sweat, I don't think his stat line showed his impact in this game. Like, I think he only got a half a sack on the stat sheet. He was in on 3 different sacks, it felt like. So his impact out there was big. He was one of my biggest players for this game coming into it. I think I had him as the MVP of the game when I did a guest podcast appearance last week. Like, he was the dude that I was watching out for this entire game. But on the stat sheet, someone stole the show from him. And while I want to give it to Montez Sweat, I have to give it to the guy who got the numbers, DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker, 4 tackles, a tackle for loss, a sack, and 2 QB hits. He was doing it out there. He deserves the baddest man award because Sweat's going to have more opportunities the rest of this year. I'm not sure how often DeMarcus Walker's going to be able to steal his shine. So to me, that's the baddest man for the Bears today.
Don't you love when defensive line depth can shine? And we can talk about good quarterback. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna go pinch myself in the corner.
We're sitting here. We all probably could have named off like a half dozen guys, right? Like Ron just mentioned, like what a nice problem to have. Where I mean, yeah, usually it's like on the defensive side. Oh, we could have picked this guy, this guy. Right now, we have almost an offensive problem in the sense where we could have picked 3 or 4 guys just strictly on offense. And again, I've been a Bears fan for over 3 decades now. I don't know when I've had that been in that place before.
Yeah. Now, I think the next category is going to fit more of that tough category that we're talking about. So let's get to it.
The nicest man.
I just love to watch Ron's face while that's playing because it's always great. But the nicest man, this is the nicest guy on the Bears today. The guy who, a new player might ask to come pick him up from the airport, might have to clean their house up for him, be a real nice guy. Sonny, who you got for your nicest man this week?
I'm honestly hard pressed to figure out who I wanted to put here. Jokingly, I almost just want to put the strength and conditioning coach because of the injuries. It's just like I gotta pick and choose. Like as you mentioned, the defensive line played well. I feel like the secondary, considering their situation and how guys needed to step up, like it wasn't noticeable that 3 of our guys were gone today.
I want to say that, like, you might have noticed Elijah Hicks a little because Evan Ingram got 100 yards, right?
Okay,
that has to fall on someone, but it's also Elijah Hicks. His job isn't to be your starting strong safety, so it's really hard to knock the guy for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you guys, I've looked over this list over and over again because I know the routine on the show, but there's no one who I feel like I can isolate and be like, nah, this guy needed to step up a little bit because I think everyone played to their role as much as I could have. So I'm just going to go ahead and call out this injury bug that keeps bothering us all of a sudden.
Hey, that's fair. In games like this, we need to think outside the box a little with it. So, like, I'm here for that. I think that makes a lot of sense when guys are going down left and right this week. Ron, what do you got?
The kickoff coverage team. When Daniel Hardy makes one of the most beautiful strips I've ever seen on a special teams play and you don't get the football out of it, that's disappointing. I'm heartbroken for Daniel Hardy that doesn't, turn into a true takeaway for the Bears when he executes that to perfection against Tank Bigsby. So they're my nicest man because they were too worried about making sure you were comfortable in the backseat getting you to the airport versus just getting you to the airport and going after the football.
I like that one.
I like that one. Yeah, I like that one too.
And for me, I had a few thoughts on this. And last week I mentioned Roschon on this. I didn't give it to him, but I mentioned it. And again, I thought about it with him at like 1.8 yards per carry or something like that this week. He had 2 catches that were big, both first downs.
Really good catches. Yeah.
I couldn't go with him there. Then I thought about, I got to get outside the box with this. And one thing I was commenting during the game was like, DeAndre Swift's really coming around to me, right? Like I'm really starting to like and enjoy DeAndre Swift's play, but I can't get away from when he gets touched, he goes down. And it's just like, oh man, I just want a little more like oomph when he gets touched, a little more fight. But again, you can't do that to him. The guy had 91 yards on 17 attempts. He had 28 yards on 4 catches. Like, you can't give the nicest man to a guy who just put up 120 yards on him. So where I'm going with is Shane Waldron's scripted plays.
Okay.
And I like that.
I think we need to talk a little bit with that about what a scripted play is or what the scripted plays are. Like, it's not, I'll probably throw this over to Ron here in a minute because he'll probably be able to give even more insight, but it's not like play 1, play 2, play 3, play 4, play 5. Like it's 10 to 20, maybe 25 plays that are on the menu for those first 2 drives. It's like these are the plays that the guys all know these are on the menu, and we're going to pick and choose as it makes sense to do it. And it got turned to a whole big thing that was probably a little bit bigger than it should have been this week of like, oh, well, they haven't had a script, but they're having a script now going forward. I personally think some of that was just to keep Shane Waldron out of the territory of we installed this the first week of camp and we haven't practiced it again since, just to give him and the players a heads up, like, okay, this is what we're looking at a little more. But Ron, I want to hear your thoughts about the scripted plays, because you've actually played at the college level and probably have more of an idea of how this all works and what was actually kind of happening there.
Yeah, there's actually, so there are certainly instances where it might be like 15 to 20 plays that are on the menu. I love that term, like the little sushi menu that you got at the end of the day. It really, there are times, I kid you not, where it's the first 10 plays and it's 1 through 10 that you run them. And you can very quickly tell, what offensive coordinators feel good about what they call ahead of time versus what they call on the fly. You could find truly a good play caller versus a better design guy via the scripted plays, right? Matt Nagy loved his scripted plays, right?
He was great at
Luke Getsy kind of was the same way, right? We would get those really good first, 1 or 2 drives, and then it all falls apart. I think that's what happened today. I think they had a plan against this Jaguars defense with their scripted plays, and the Jags probably came out in something that they weren't expecting. But by running those 10 plays, you also learn a lot about what the defense is going to throw at you. And that's why they run them, because they might say, hey, we don't know how so-and-so is going to play in this coverage against this route concept. So we're going to run this on play number 3. So when play 28 comes around and we see him bite again, because now we have it on film and we have it on our little Microsoft Surface tablets on the sideline, then you can take your deep shot, or you can, make a check off of that, things like that. So a lot of times it really is just to set things up later in the game, because you force the defense to kind of self-diagnose what they're doing against you. And you can completely design your first 10 plays just to be like, this is a man beater. This is a zone beater. How do they play against this? And then the rest of the game, you go, okay, we know what they're going to give us against X, Y, and Z looks. Go out and execute based on what we're calling in the helmet instead of, on the old quarterback card, as Peyton Manning and all the old school QBs used to wear and all the college guys still wear now. So, yeah, really it varies kind of team to team and OC to OC, but sometimes it literally is just 1 through 10 on the sushi list, and you just go down the line with those scripted plays.
And I am sorry to any viewers, my camera's bugging out a little bit. My sound is coming through okay from what I can tell. So
it looks like you're about to cut the nicest man promo again.
Yeah.
The Wyatt Six is coming after you, Q.
I think it's time to buy a new webcam. But anyways, let's move on to our final segment before we get to final thoughts here.
Keys to victory.
And this is the point in the show where we want to go through the keys to victory that we talked about pregame and give a grade of how we think the Bears execute at these things, and whether these were the right keys, whether these were things that actually mattered, or were we a little bit off the mark with them. Every week on the pregame show, we form these keys to victory. We go write an article the next day over at ontapsportsnet.com. So if you're ever interested going into the game to knowing them, just give a listen or go to the website, check out the article. They're right there. The article goes into a bit more narrative detail, gives a few more stats that support it, whereas our conversation is more like brainstorming them. But first,
just not to cut you off, Q, but we got almost 20 people in here, so definitely hit that like button and subscribe button. If you're here for the first time, we're doing this multiple times a week. So Q is one of the smartest Bears fans that you're ever going to find. Ron is Ron. Everyone loves Ron. Me, I'm just here to make sure I get paid. But definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Costs you guys nothing, but it helps the channel grow and it shares it to other Bears fans on YouTube. Sorry, Q, didn't mean to cut you off.
Great decision to say that. But moving into it, our first key to the game here was letting it rip. And this was the Jaguars' defensive backs have been burned a lot through the first 5 games. They're still missing their top corner, Tyson Campbell. they averaged 287 yards a game to passers, 2 touchdowns. They got their first interception of the year this week, actually. So this was all about Caleb, right? It was like, this is Caleb's game to rip it downfield, let it rip to the mid to deep parts of the field. Starting with Sunny, how do you think they did with this?
I think 4 touchdowns is 4 touchdowns. I mean, they may not have gotten the long distance, throws that I think the article kind of focused in on, but a lot of it has to do with what Ron said earlier. We also were playing with shorter fields, and a lot of it was yak, right? Like a lot of yards after catch, whether it's Cole Kmet or whoever. I think they executed this one.
Ron?
Yeah, I think they did as well. I think because I'm going to take the let it rip, not being on the preview show, and I'm going to put my own little stance on it. Letting it rip into those tight windows that he was letting it rip to against the defense, right? The Keenan Allen touchdown in the post fade, the fitting it right over the safety in the Keenan Allen in the tight window. That's still letting it rip. It's just a different kind of letting it rip. So I think they absolutely let it rip just fine. And there's something to be said. People love the deep ball, right? Chicks dig the deep ball. But at the end of the day, if you get a 65-yard play off of a 5-yard throw, it's just as sexy on the stat sheet as the other one. So I think he let it rip just fine. And getting the ball in your playmakers' hands and letting them do what they need to do with it afterwards is fine by me. I think they get a very much a passing grade from Ron Luce's grading system here.
Right. That's you just reminded me with Chicks Love the Deep Ball of the old Rex Grossman, like kissing Susie Colbert of, you gotta release the dragon, just screw it and go deep. But one point to that I think I want to point out, though, the touchdown to Keenan Allen, the one in the middle of the field, that was 9 yards out of the end zone. That was at the back of the end zone. That's a 19-yard pass, right? And I don't think that gets recognized enough. That ball was all the way at the back of the end zone. The only place Keenan could get it, that's 19 yards. 3-yard pass to Keenan Allen, sure, sounds simple and easy. That was back corner, so that's a 13-yard. So that the touchdowns get a little messier with that stuff in my mind than just like looking at what the number is attached to the touchdown. Now, looking at the next one, and this one's probably a little tougher to decipher. Our second key to the game was keeping the edges clean. And this one was all about, if you're going to air it out, this only works if your tackles can give you the chance to, because the Jaguars have 4 power rushers that rotate on the edges here between Josh Hines-Allen, Eric Armstead, Roy Robertson Harris, and then Trayvon Walker. I was like, who's the number one pick? Who's the number one pick? Trayvon Walker. All 4 of them are powerful rushers who we feel fairly comfortable with Darnell Wright's ability to anchor against these guys. Playing with the back injury that he's playing with, it's a little less than we're used to, but he's still good at it. Braxton was the real concern here of like, man, these guys are powerful. These guys are long. They get into your chest and they throw some mass on you. So starting with Ron, how do you think the Bears offensive tackles did at keeping Caleb clean today to let him rip the ball?
I think they did an okay job. I feel like on a couple of the sacks, things started to break down late in the play. We didn't see a lot of the early season breakdowns where it's immediate and, it's shades of yesteryears and the quarterback's taking off running as soon as the ball snapped because guys are breaking through the line. A lot of them were kind of almost coverage sacks in a lot of ways. I think the offensive line played admirably. Truly, I think that's probably their best game of the season so far, if you ask me. I'm actually excited to break down the All-22 with you this week. That's a good time in the film room. But I have no quarrels. I have no concern. Sure, they gave up 3 sacks. But at the end of the day, I mean, Caleb had all the time in the world to make plays, and they had an efficient game plan. And sometimes the best weapon to keep your quarterback clean is getting the ball out of his hands fast. And they did that well today, too. So I think it might be a little muddy in the waters right now because we really haven't been able to see, go back and really watch and kind of feel through what the offensive line did. But I think just from the raw 60 minutes that we watched, about 12 hours ago now, they get a passing grade from me.
And I do just want to mention, it's so hard to actually know how the offensive line played until you go back and review the tape. Like, Ron and I are both offensive line guys. I'm not sitting there watching the offensive line all game. You know, I have a general idea of what happened on some plays when stuff broke down, but I wasn't watching the O-line. I was watching Caleb. I was watching the receivers. I was looking for space on the field, where I think the ball's going to go to, what I think their strategy is going to be. So it's really hard to sit there from the broadcast view and say, for me to say the offensive line played well or poorly until I get that coach's tape. But if you're interested in that, over at ontapsportsnet.com, we have a breakdown every week on this YouTube channel. Me and Ron will sit down and go through an hour of O-line tape with you guys and break it down. So make sure to check that out. But sorry,
a shameless plug for all the sickos, Q. I love it.
Yeah.
No, keep it going.
But sorry, I hijacked that from you, Sonny. I want to get your thoughts on this as well.
No, I mean, this is sicko talk, and you two are the ultimate sickos when it comes to this. Like, I was going to joke around that. Yeah, like, I don't really have my eye on the offensive line as much as you two might. But as Ron said, I think this was the game where I noticed the line the least. And that is kind of what you're asking for at this point. And even when guys got through, Caleb did a fantastic job giving himself extra space, continuing to look, going down his reads, making the throw when he needed to. But today, also getting 56 yards in the process. So, like, even if Jacksonville executed on their side, I think we adapted really well, and Caleb still was able to make some plays.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line, as you both kind of got to there, I thought they did their job today from everything that I could tell. The biggest thing for me when I'm thinking O-line off the broadcast view is, did the offense execute how they wanted to? And I think they did. So to me, they probably did their jobs pretty well. Now, last key to the game here, and this one is a bit more overarching, but it was really coaching one. Don't overthink it. And this came down to, you're playing on a soccer field. The surface is different. That can impact traction, speed, agility, and the way plays happen, the timing of plays. Maybe that had something to do with the deep ball timing. But it's okay to keep in mind that you need to make adjustment for that playing surface, the stadium conditions, what different player fatigue you might be getting from all that travel, or just any general issues that come from playing overseas and away from home and in a different environment. But don't overthink it. Don't take an overstep for something that isn't exactly an issue, but might be a foreseen issue. So starting with you, Sykes, this is the one we brainstormed on the show. What type of letter grade would you give them for this number one key this week?
The way the game started had me a little more worried. We talked about the 2-3 and outs, including, Caleb kind of just throwing the ball at his own offensive lineman's face. And it's like, oh, here we go. This is the weird things that kind of happen in London games. But as the game progressed, once we got to the ball the third time, I think this game we played like we played the last couple of games at this point. The game could have been in Chicago. You really didn't notice anything. Shane Waldron was running a masterclass. Caleb was making the right throws. I think they took care of it. All the concerns I had about this being a London game were out the window after that second drive.
Ron?
As one that wasn't on the brainstorming, I will say this about Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It was built to accommodate American football. So that is a beautiful brand new stadium. I believe they actually bring in, it is turf. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Now, it looks a very nice turf. It's not MetLife turf. It's not snatching Achilles and ACLs like, the Meadowlands. But, there's definitely something to be said even too with sight lines, right? I mean, you get used to your home stadium or a visiting stadium when you've played there over the years. Under the Eberflus tutelage, they've never played in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So that's another thing to consider too early on. Maybe that was part of the reason that the deep ball didn't connect, because the sight lines look awkward. It's just a different stadium that, they're not accustomed to. So I think they did a nice job. I really think maybe one of the few things that we can kind of point to and say, hey, that was a good move by the coaching staff and by management making the decision going early in the week, getting acclimated to the UK, getting acclimated to the time, having no issues with, excuses for jet lag and things like that, where the Jags had to come in on Friday because of the hurricane, right? They were playing at a disadvantage. Now, granted, for them, they get to stay in the UK this week because they play again next Sunday in the UK. But I think that was a move where they didn't overthink it. They said, we're just going to go early. And kudos to the Chicago Bears, because you got to pay to house all the players over there for that long. So good on them to put money forward, agree with your coaches trying to set your players up for success. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited this is actually happening in the world of Bears football. They made the right decision. They didn't overthink it. And I think that was huge for what the Bears did today in this game because of just the little things like that, to your guys' points that you brainstormed. Don't overthink it. Just give these guys the recipe for success and let them go out and ball out on the international stage.
Just handle your business. That's it. And that's exactly what they did.
Now, starting with Sunny, final thoughts coming away from this game going into the bye.
You know what? Into this game, like I said, we are where I want us to be. But that doesn't mean it has to stop here. You know, let's take the next 2 weeks. Let's get healthy. We got 2 weeks to scout Jaden Daniels now. You know, the other big story when it comes to rookie NFL quarterbacks, Washington game could be an important one. You know, their record is just as good as ours. This could have playoff implications, especially if the NFC North continues to be as strong as it's been. But otherwise, you know what? Just to steal the term that we just already discussed, don't overthink it. Just keep doing what you're doing because right now it's working.
Ron?
Yeah, I think I'll shout it from the rooftops just one more time from the show. Please get healthy. Please get healthy. Just get healthy. Just a little bit. Just get healthy. I want Jalen Johnson playing the right side of Jaden Daniels' formation on just about every play in 2 weeks because we've seen the throw charts. He doesn't throw to the other side of the field. Outside of that, I agree with you, Sonny. Don't overthink it. Take this bye week in stride. The Bears were absolutely screwed over by late bye weeks the last 2 years. This is the first year they got what we would probably largely consider a proper bye week, like somewhere between week 7 and like week 9 is kind of that sweet spot. They got it. And what better way to move into it, especially with momentum, with the morale in that building up in Lake Forest, than with an international win in what I saw a game goer talk about it on social media who I don't know. And I talked to somebody in the UK that I actually do know about the game. And they both told me it was a Bears home game at Hotspur Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
People are jumping on the Bears bandwagon. Just keep doing what you're doing. I like what you had to say, Sonny. Don't overthink it. Just keep it moving.
And for my final thoughts, I'm gonna steal a little bit from what you said, Sonny. This is the first time in Matt Eberflus's head coaching career that they will not need to make wholesale changes over the bye week. It is something the last 2 years, it was major changes to get stuff fixed, get stuff right with the way that stuff was operating offensively and defensively. So I hope that's not a habit at this point, you know, to just flip the table over during the bye, because I don't think you need to this year. Sure, I want to see some minor adjustments here and there, some stuff that's going to, you know, you keep throwing the same scouted looks out there. It's going to get stale. Teams are going to figure it out. They're going to find your trend, whatever it is, even if you don't think you have a trend, there's one there, you know? So I do want to see some changes, but just, I hope it's not the wholesale ones that we've seen. And one of the things I want to end the show with is this tweet from Deontay Lee. Caleb Williams is now 12th in the league in EPA on red zone throws and 6th when defenses play man coverage against him, and 1st in both metrics among rookie quarterbacks. That's a big deal to me. The Bears have allowed Caleb to throw the football in the red zone more than most rookies are allowed to. Like, there's a reason rookie touchdowns tend to be low, because they're not allowed to throw in the red zone. It's the most condensed area of the field. It's the most dangerous area of the field. It is a spot where you only allow your quarterback to really take the reins when you have complete trust that they know what they're doing, because there's nothing worse than turning the ball over in the red zone. So that means a lot when he's already 12th in the NFL at it. And the best rookie goes, I wouldn't expect a rookie to be over 12th, you know? So there's a lot of good in that statement to me. And the man coverage one, I don't care about as much when you have this much receiving talent. When you have this much receiving talent, you should be really good against man coverage because you have the dudes to deal with it. But that one really stood out to me. And I'm excited for this Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams matchup. It's in Washington, right? Caleb Williams' hometown.
Yes, it is.
Caleb Williams grew up a Washington
Oh, that's
fan.
right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
The Washington Commanders did not give up enough to go get Caleb Williams.
And I'm grateful.
He remembers that. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a big game for Caleb, that he is chip on his shoulder, all out, ready to go. Not that I think Washington could have traded for him, but if he's got that maniac sicko mind, he's finding a way to work that into the chip on his shoulder.
Nothing better. Hammer the over. That's all I heard what you were saying there, Q.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening with us. You can find all our work over at ontapsportsnet.com. As Sunny mentioned earlier, if you like this, make sure to give us a like. Make sure to throw us a subscribe. It means so much to what we're doing here to help us grow. So if you like it, help us out. And boys, why don't we get out of here the only way we know how?
Bear down, boys.
Bear down, baby.
Bear down.